Confucius once said, "Signs and symbols rule the world, not words or laws." The New World Order Secret Society Network has their own secret language, which is hidden in plain sight. Unlike our left-brained alphabetical languages like English, Spanish, or French, the Brotherhood language is right-brained and pictographic like Egyptian hieroglyphs or other ancient writing. It's composed entirely of symbols. The esoteric meanings of these symbols are taught incrementally as secret society initiates climb the ranks, all the while displaying broad, benevolent, and usually false meanings to the uninitiated. Jordan Maxwell said, "Symbols are very important. If you don't think so, put a swastika on your arm, walk into a synagogue, and see the kind of response you get. Symbols elicit and bring out emotional responses in people. Even more importantly, symbols have their own spiritual presence. They tell you things." Michael Tessarian said, "Some of the techniques that they use in this psychic dictatorship are words, symbols, colors, rhythms, light, movement, and mudras, which mean hand positions, gestures, which have been used for eons as means of spiritualization, used by cults, infused with mysticism, are now being used on us for quite an opposite agenda, to drag us down into the pits of our own miasma, our own hells." Jack Benjamin said, "The use of symbols to convey meaning to the initiated and to conceal it from the uninitiated is as old as civilization. A clear understanding of the symbolic way of thinking is necessary if you are to unveil and comprehend the esoteric meaning of the symbols of ancient and modern times." And David Icke wrote, "The Illuminati use what I call reverse symbolism. They place their symbols all around us, but present them with the reverse of their true meaning. For example, the dove symbolizes peace to most people, but to the Illuminati bloodlines it represents their goddess, Queen Semiramis, Isis. The lighted torch means freedom and liberty to the population, but to the Illuminati it is the very symbol of their agenda and control." Did you know the Statue of Liberty was given to America by French Freemasons? There is another statue just like it in France, on an island in the Seine. The character propagated as Lady Liberty, supposedly derived from the Roman goddess Libertas, is simply a patriotic pseudonym for the public. Lady Liberty has been known throughout history as Isis of Egypt, Semiramis or Ishtar of Babylon, Athena of Greece, Astarte of Syria, Cybele of Rome, Ashtoreth of Israel, and Diana of Ephesus. She is the pagan mother goddess of the Brotherhood, nearly always depicted dressed in robe, wearing a crown of thorns, and carrying the torch of illumination. She is symbolic of both the moon and dog star Sirius, which is why the English word for God is simply dog backwards. The dog days of summer was coined after Sirius, and was believed to be an evil time. J. Brady, in Clavis Calendarium, says the dog days were known as a time when the seas boiled, wine turned sour, dogs grew mad, and all creatures became languid, causing to man burning fevers, hysterics, and frenzies. This hot time was associated with hot-headedness. This is why you're serious, Sirius, when you're serious. This is also the occult origin of the all-American hot dog. July 4th, America's Independence Day, just happens to be the second of Sirius's Dog Days, an important date to the pre-Masonic Knights Templar. Graham Hancock and Robert Bouval wrote, "It is the date of the Templars' massive defeat by Muslim armies in the Holy Land at the Horns of Hattin on the 4th of July, 1187, which was followed by the loss of Jerusalem to Christendom. There could therefore hardly be a more evocative Templar or Solomonic date than the 4th of July, evocative, that is, of the aspiration to build Solomon's Temple in Jerusalem. The reader will also be aware, of course, that the 4th of July is Independence Day in the U.S., commemorating the signature of the Declaration of Independence, and converting the date forever into a powerful talisman that spells out independence and freedom for the New World, and now, by and large, for a New World Order." The symbol for the U.S. dollar bill is an I and an S, or sometimes two I's. But the S and the I have nothing to do with dollars, and everything to do with Isis, I-S-I-S. The Egyptian goddess of the moon and Sirius was Isis, and this is the most common name for her used by the Brotherhood. So the dollar sign is actually an occult talisman to this Illuminati goddess. This is why both the Statue of Liberty, Isis, and her dollars are both the same color, green. The ancient roots of the word moon were mon and min, which is why we have money made at the mint. The very idea of money and symbolic currency comes from ancient secret societies. Michael Tsarian said, "Silver was connected with the moon, and therefore with the goddesses of the moon, the most famous of which was and is Isis. So her name became the symbol of money. We find this today in the cleverly camouflaged motif of the dollar sign, which is nothing more than the sigil for the name of ISIS, but fused together in an ingenious manner."
In 1933, 33rd degree Freemason Franklin D. Roosevelt added the Great Seal to the US dollar, transforming it into an occult talisman. The same year, he signed a gold confiscation order and took the US off the gold standard. At a press conference on March 8, 1933, he joked, "As long as nobody asks me whether we are off the gold standard, that's all right, because nobody knows what the gold standard really is." David Icke wrote, "The 33rd degree Freemason and Black Nobility President Franklin Delano Roosevelt had this symbol printed on the dollar bill from 1933. It was a symbol of secret societies in Europe long before anyone heard of the United States, and it is awash with Freemasonic and secret society symbolism going back to the ancient world. Notice the symbology and numerology used on the dollar bill. The most obvious symbol is the Illuminati pyramid, with the hovering, all-seeing eye in the capstone. Opposite this is the All-American Eagle, with a downturned U.S. flag affront its chest. These and many other symbols on the dollar come from the ancient stellar, solar, and lunar cults. Michael Tsarian wrote, "The pyramid is for the stellar cult, as are the various stars that appear on the bill. The golden eagle is for the solar cult. The eagle is the symbol of America because it signifies the constellation in Scorpio called Achaea. Scorpio is the sign of power, money, and wealth, as well as secret knowledge. The U.S. elections are held right in the middle of Scorpio, and the birthday of America is in the scorpionic decanate of Cancer. The color green also relates to the solar cult. The number 13, which appears frequently on the dollar bill, stands for the lunar cult. There are 13 months in the lunar year. America originally had 13 states. London is made up of 28 boroughs, this being the number of lunar mansions. 13 is also a stellar cult numeral, much used by the Israelites and other Semitic tribes and nations. Then there are the watermarks, or moon letters, for the lunar cults. The double-headed eagle symbol, which came from Babylon and survived through the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, has been today adopted by America, Mexico, Israel, Germany, France, Chile, Italy, Honduras, and many others. David Icke wrote, "The eagle is a widely used Brotherhood symbol, and it can be found on the coats of arms of many countries, including Egypt, Libya, and Iraq. It was a major symbol for Germany, and it appears in the designs of pulpits and lecterns used by the Christian Church. Seals like the one used on the Great Seal of the United States can be traced back to at least 4000 BC in Egypt, Babylon, Assyria, and India. The word money comes from the lunar cults. Early words for the moon were mon and min, giving us mani, printed at a mint. We have a worldwide monarchy that controls the world's money supply. We have finance ministers, prime ministers, and their ministries being controlled by occult elites and societies. Monks perform monthly ceremonies in monasteries. It is interesting to note that the plant mint is green, our money, printed at the mint, is green, and the Isis moon goddess Statue of Liberty is also green. Someone who is ignorant is green, Moon lovers are lunatics. From the French, they are monsters. You can see how the elite esoterically worship the moon, continuing the lunar cult, while exoterically condemning and marginalizing it. Jordan Maxwell wrote, "You will see beneath the pyramid 1776 spelled out in Roman numerals, plus the words Annuit Coeptis, and is translated as Annuit, our enterprise. Coeptis is translated to mean crowned with success, or is crowned with success. Therefore, Annuit Coeptis is our enterprise, which is now a success." Then, in order to find out what enterprise was a success, read on the $1 bill at the bottom of the pyramid, Novos Ordo Seclorum, which translates as the New Order of the World, the New World Order. The Latin translation of Annuit Coeptis Novos Ordo Seclorum is, "Our New World Order is crowned with success." The other Latin phrase, E pluribus unum, means one out of many, order out of chaos, the Hegelian dialectic, the problem-reaction-solution paradigm used by the elites to drive world events, opinions, and policies. There are 13 letters in Annuit Coeptis, and 13 letters in E pluribus unum. The dollar encodes the number 13 repeatedly. There are 13 stars above the eagle's head, 13 steps on the pyramid, 13 vertical bars on the shield, 13 horizontal stripes at the top of the shield, 13 leaves on the olive branch, 13 arrows, 13 fruits, and 13 numbers. If you draw a 6-sided Star of David hexagram around the pyramid on the back of the dollar, 5 of the 6 corners will point to letters ASMON, or when you rearrange them, MASON. Jordan Maxwell wrote, "You will find on the dollar bill the eagle, which comes from the ancient concept of the phoenix and has 13 stars above it. The 13 stars are arranged in the configuration of the Star of David, or the hexagram. Most people think the 13 stars represent the original 13 colonies. In the first place, why did they have to have 13 colonies? Why couldn't they have 27, or 4, or 10? When one understands that the number 13 is a very important, profound Masonic number, and that many of the founding fathers of this country were Freemasons, as well as Rosicrucians, then you will follow this connecting thread of material to see what was actually being created. They knew what they were doing when they divided this country into 13 colonies. The number 13 is not an unlucky number for them. It's an unlucky number for you."
After President Kennedy's assassination in 1963, the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry erected an obelisk there at Dealey Plaza and topped it with a depiction of the Illuminati flame. On his grave in Arlington Cemetery, they lit an eternal flame, which still burns to this day. Over the Pont de l'Alma tunnel in Paris, where Princess Diana was killed after crashing into the 13th pillar, the Illuminati erected a huge golden torch and flame sitting atop a black pentagram. On the island where Diana lies buried was placed yet another depiction of the Illuminati flame. David Icke said, "The Brotherhood is telling us that they killed Kennedy and Diana, but unless you understand their symbolic language, you don't know." At Ground Zero of the World Trade Center, shortly after 9/11, they lit another eternal flame for the victims. Overlooking the fallen World Trade Center buildings in New York Harbor stands the Freemasonic Statue of Liberty, also holding up the Illuminati torch. Another few blocks away, in Rockefeller Center, the Rockefellers erected a huge golden statue of Prometheus carrying the lighted torch. This Illuminati symbol is found on the dime, the DIA seal, Indiana's seal, the symbol of the Olympic Games, CBN, the National Front, the Better Business Bureau, and many other places where the Brotherhood's fingers have delved. Jordan Maxwell wrote, "The torch, of course, the Olympic torch, is the torch of Prometheus, the god who stole fire for the service of man." And again, as we said, in New York, in front of Rockefeller Plaza, you will see the statue of Prometheus holding in his hand a flame, the torch, the fire of revolution. The dime, of course, inscripted on the back, you will find the torch of illumination. It's still there today. The Statue of Liberty has the torch. Of course, on all universities and colleges, we find in their symbols and emblems that they have the torches, symbolically standing for illumination of the Illuminati. As a matter of fact, when you are a graduate from a university, you become an alumni, which is taken from, obviously, Illuminati, emphasizing that you become illuminated when you go to a university. The torch is also used in the Amoco oil logo. It is found many, many places. David Icke wrote, "Their most used symbols are the lighted torch, the symbol of knowledge, and the sun. When an initiate reaches a certain level in the pyramid, they are said to be illuminated." More symbolism of the lighted torch. One of the recurring stories in the ancient world is of a hero figure who takes fire, knowledge, from the gods and gives it to the people, the chosen few people, that is. At the Rockefeller Center in New York today is a gold statue of Prometheus, gold, the solar metal of the gods, and he is holding the light, the fire, in line with the legend. To the Rockefellers, this is not just a statue. It is a symbol of the whole scam they are involved in. Following the Illuminati torch symbol begins to unravel a larger mystery. The Brotherhood goddess Isis Semiramis holds the torch of enlightenment in the Statue of Liberty, as well as the Columbia Pictures and Columbia Records logo. Columbia University's symbol is also the torch and flame. CBS, Columbia Broadcasting System's logo, is the all-seeing eye of the Illuminati. The capital of the United States is Washington, D.C., which stands for District of Columbia. America was discovered by a man named Columbus. The Fraternal Order Knights of Columbus have been exposed aiding the drug trade in Colombia, the country. Columbia is the NASA space shuttle that blew up. Columbine is the high school that suffered the mass shootings. What is going on here? Jordan Maxwell wrote, "It goes back to a group of Freemasons that came to this country before the founding of our Constitution, who were called the Columbians, known as the Columbian faction. They founded what we know as Columbia University. Out of that has come Columbia Space Shuttle, Columbia Pictures, and Columbia Broadcasting, CBS, with the all-seeing eye on the pyramid as their symbol. As a matter of fact, our government, our so-called government, is not even a part of our country. It is an area called the District of Columbia. It is a separate district, not part of America at all. The simple truth behind that fact is that there was a section of the geography in this country that was set aside by a very powerful group of Freemasons called the Columbian faction, working behind the scenes during the founding of this country. The fourth and highest degree emblem in the Knights of Columbus depicts a dive-bombing white dove. The French word for dove is colombe. Sacrificial doves representing virgins were known in Masonic circles as the colombe. Many of the British royal crowns and scepters are topped with the white dove. This is the same royalty that gave us the pseudonym Christopher Columbus as the man who discovered America. David Icke wrote, "The Statue of Liberty is the symbolic image of the goddess worshipped by the Illuminati bloodlines since they were based in Babylon and before. She goes under many names, including Queen Semiramis, the branch-bearer, who was symbolized as a dove. When the Illuminati bloodlines moved their headquarters to Rome, the goddess was worshipped as Venus Columba, or Venus the Dove. The French word for dove is still colombe. This is why a man who signed his name Colon is known to official history as Columbus. He was bearing the branch of the dove into the Americas in 1492, and was given this symbolic name relating to the Illuminati goddess. The symbols of the three main political parties in the United Kingdom, which serve the structure headed by the Queen, are the lighted torch, Conservatives, the red rose, Labour, and the dove, Liberal Democrats. At the time of writing, their three leaders are Tony Blair, Bilderberg Group, William Hague, Bilderberg Group, and Paddy Ashdown, Bilderberg Group. Just a coincidence. Nothing to worry about. During the 1790s, French Freemason Pierre L'Enfant designed the street plan and architectural layout of Washington, D.C. to include many occult talismans. If you see D.C. from an aerial view, you may be shocked to find things like an iron cross, the Star of David, an upside-down pentagram pointing to the White House, and even a pyramid with a huge owl sitting atop the Capitol building. The Egyptian hieroglyph for the Illuminati goddess Isis Sirius is a star, an oval, and an obelisk, all drawn together. In Washington, D.C., there just happens to be the Washington Monument obelisk, the Oval Office, and a pentagram encoded in the streets and architecture. David Oveson wrote, "The Egyptian hierogram for the star Sirius consists of 3 shapes, a 5-pointed star, an oval, and an obelisk. Amazingly, this is just what we find in stone in Washington, D.C. The entire city is dedicated astromantically to the star Sirius and its occult deities. Astrology is good enough for the ruling plutocrats, it seems. Pity that when the ordinary person seeks to use the divination arts for their own personal physical and spiritual empowerment, they are considered freaks and devil worshippers." As J.P. Morgan said, "Millionaires do not use astrology, billionaires do." In Washington, D.C., we have the phallic monument facing the female Oval Office, plus the Pentagon and L'Enfant's pentagrams. In Paris, we find Cleopatra's Needle, another obelisk, in front of the Notre Dame Virgin Mary's Cathedral. The Vatican has another masculine obelisk surrounded by a feminine circular building structure. In London, New York, and many other places, you will find the same. The Brotherhood has placed their sexual architecture at key geomantic points all over the earth. David Icke wrote, "The obelisk and the dome are common sights in the monuments and buildings of the Brotherhood. The obelisk is an ancient phallic symbol of the male energy and solar energy, and the dome represents the female or moon energy. Often they are placed close together. This is the symbolism of the Oval Office, the womb female, in the White House, which looks out on the Washington Monument, the vast stone obelisk, phallic, male. These symbols attract and generate the energy they represent. They are a physical thought form. The obelisk also symbolizes the phallus of the Egyptian sun god Osiris. According to legend, after Osiris had been sliced into pieces by his rival Set, the queen Isis found all the pieces except his willy. An obelisk, claimed to come from Alexandria in Egypt, stands in Central Park, New York, and its twin was erected in the 19th century during the reign of Queen Victoria on the former Templar lands alongside the River Thames, not far from the Houses of Parliament. It is known as Cleopatra's Needle, and originally stood in Heliopolis, the Egyptian city of the sun, from at least 1500 BC, before it was moved to Alexandria. A sphinx has been placed on either side at its London location. Another Egyptian obelisk, which was built in Luxor 3,200 years ago, now stands in the Place de Concorde in Paris, less than a minute's drive from the scene of Diana's crash. On the other side of the crash scene is the Eiffel Tower, another gigantic obelisk in disguise. The Washington Monument in Washington, D.C. is a colossal obelisk. The dome, from a Greek word meaning place of the gods, draws in and harnesses energy, as does the pyramid. They also keep the secrets of ancient ley lines and continue building along them. For instance, the cities of Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. are all on a perfect diagonal that continues down to Teotihuacan and all the way up to Stonehenge, Troy, and Baalbek. London to Giza and Paris to Dendera are almost equidistant parallel lines as well. This geomantic knowledge was understood and kept hidden by ancient builders and masons, and remains that way today. David Icke wrote, "Has anyone ever asked themselves why a war memorial nearly always has to be an obelisk? And why do you think the Washington Monument in the center of Washington, D.C. is a giant obelisk? Because obelisks, like all these symbols and geometrical shapes,
generate the energy they represent. I remember climbing some stone steps inside a big obelisk near Hebden Bridge in England, and feeling enormous male sexual energy all around me. I wondered what on earth was happening, until I remembered where I was. Inside a male phallus, in effect. What a symbol is built to represent is the energy it will generate, because symbols are a physical manifestation of the thoughts which create them. These guys don't put their symbols everywhere just for fun. They do it because it helps to resonate the energy field to the vibrational frequency they want. In turn, this affects the thoughts and feelings of the people. The Masons are very familiar with astrology, astronomy, and astrotheology. They align all important commemorations, dedications, declarations, groundbreakings, grand openings, and other events to coincide with astrological phenomena. David Oveson wrote, "The extraordinary truth is that the very existence of the Washington Monument is intimately linked with the Egyptian star Sirius, the Sihor, which the ancients represented in their sacred hieroglyphics as an obelisk as well as a star. How is it possible that this most important star of the ancient world should find itself, as it were, resurrected in the architecture of the United States? In the course of that day, when the cornerstone of the Washington Monument was laid, the sun would have passed over Sirius. Computations clearly show that on the day the Declaration of Independence was agreed in Philadelphia, the sun was on Sirius. The Mason who first signed the Declaration of Independence would have been aware of the particular significance of July 4th as a cosmic event. The day was the second in the so-called Dog Days, which begin on July 3rd. The Dog Days are so called because they refer to the rising of the star Sirius. In the years following the Revolution, the Masonic fraternities held ceremonial layings for such new enterprises as bridges, locks, universities, government buildings, state houses, memorials, and even churches. Such buildings were aligned with the stars, and with the spiritual beings who ruled the stars. Although a survey of the foundation charts used in the early phase of the building of Washington, D.C. reveals the importance of astrology, and, indeed, confirms beyond doubt that astrology played an important role in the early Masonic rites, the rationale of astrology was rarely discussed openly, even in Masonic documents. Knowledge of the stars, insofar as they were understood in Masonic circles, was preserved as secrets best left to those with specialist knowledge of such things. August 7th, 1880, at precisely 10:59 a.m., the cornerstone of the Washington Monument obelisk was laid just as the sun passed over Sirius. The day the foundation stone for the White House was laid, around noon, the moon entered the same 23rd degree of Virgo as the Dragon's Head node. On the morning of September 18th, 1793, the sun was also passing through this degree of Virgo when the Capitol building was founded. When the Library of Congress was founded, the sun and Saturn were in conjunction in Virgo. And when the Scottish Rite Freemason House of the Temple cornerstone was laid on October 18th, 1911, the moon and Venus were in conjunction in Virgo. The White House, Capitol building, and Washington Monument form the Federal Triangle, which mirrors on the ground Arcturus, Spica, and Regulus in the sky, 3 stars that bracket Virgo. In Washington, D.C., there are 22 full zodiacs secreted into the architecture, most of them highlighting Virgo. This is the highest concentration of zodiacal art and symbology in the world, compared with only 4 in London, for example. David Oveson wrote, "The chances of the correspondence being mere coincidence are so remote that we must assume that whoever was directing the planning of Washington, D.C., not only had a considerable knowledge of astrology, but had a vested interest in emphasizing the role of the sign Virgo. Time and time again, we shall see that a knowledge of the stars played an important part in every stage of the creative phases in the construction of the city. On evenings from August 10th to the 15th, as the sun sets over Pennsylvania Avenue, the constellation Virgo appears in the sky above the White House and the Federal Triangle. At that same moment, the setting sun appears precisely above the apex of a stone pyramid in the old post office tower, which is just wide enough to occlude the solar disk. According to the 19th century Freemason Ross Parsons, the Assumption of the Virgin Mary is fixed on the 15th of August because at that time the sun is so entirely in the constellation of Virgo that the stars of which it is composed are rendered invisible in the bright effulgency of his rays. John Coleman wrote, "Man has always felt the need to dominate, and nowhere and at no time is the desire more prevalent than in this modern era. If it were not so, why all the need for secret societies? If we are ruled by an open system, run by democratically elected officials, why the need for a secret Masonic order in every village, town, and city across the United States? How is it that Freemasonry can operate so openly and yet keeps its secrets so well hidden?"
First, you pay out your tuition to get into university, where they strip you of your intuition and give you an indoctrination. Then you receive a Master's Masonic degree while wearing a Masonic mortarboard cap and Cult of Saturn black robes to become an alumni or Illuminati. Graduation means to increment or retard progress. As Jordan Maxwell says, the true meaning of graduation is gradual indoctrination. Indeed, stick a bunch of 5-year-olds in a room full of 5-year-olds for a year, then a bunch of 6-year-olds with 6-year-olds and so on for 20 years until you're so indoctrinated they give you a doctorate. Michael Tessarian wrote, "The syllables are ma for measure and store for star, measurer of the stars, namely an astrologer. Children are still given a star today for successful application to their studies. When we matriculate from university, we are given a master's degree. This is purely Sabian. Degrees are part of the cycle of the zodiac. One was given a degree to show that they, like the sun they were progeny of, had ascended to an exalted place. Once you had mastered the stars, you were then, quite literally, a master." Jordan Maxwell wrote, "When you graduate from high school, you come out processionally with a black robe, which is black for Saffron, the god of the Hebrews, requiring that you wear the square mortarboard on top of your head. The square mortarboards are, of course, used by the Freemasons for their plaster. So that is why you wear a square mortarboard when you graduate, ultimately becoming an alumni. It all has to do with Freemasonry. It all has to do with the control of education in this country." Judges and Roman Catholic priests also traditionally wear and wore black robes. Judges have a Masonic hammer or gavel which they hit to declare the word of law. The idea of law comes from the biblical 10 stone commandments, and so it is said that you break the law. Judges always sit on a 3-tier high platform representing the first 3 blue degrees of Freemasonry. The same tri-tier platform is found at Congress, and the altar in most Catholic and Protestant churches is 3 tiers high. That's also why you get or give someone the 3rd degree, related to the 3rd degree of Masonry, where the initiate is asked a series of probing questions he must answer correctly in order to become a Master Mason. There is usually a gate around church altars, just as there are gates with swinging doors in every courtroom. The congregations at church all stand up to recognize the priest, just as all rise when the judge walks in. Then the judge takes a recess, because he's in court, playing a game of tennis commandments with lawyers who play the dialectic protagonist-antagonist game, bouncing the advantage into each other's court. In the courtroom, witnesses must place their hand on the Old and New Testament before giving their testimony, just as a priest's sermon is often called testimony. Also notice mon from moon in testimony and sermon. As a witness swears in, one hand is placed on the Bible, while the other is held up. In church, when parishioners feel the Holy Spirit, often during song, they will hold one or both hands up to praise the Lord. Jordan Maxwell said, "Then when you get further into Saturn, you begin to understand that his color is black, that he was a god of one of the many different Semitic tribes or groups, and one of his symbols was a square. Then you get into the square black mortarboard that the university or high school students wear when they graduate. It is a square on his head, and it's usually black, the color of Saturn, one of the ancient Hebrew gods. This is the same black used on the robe the judge wears when he's going to throw you in jail, because the black represents Saturn. Saturn is the old Semitic god. That is why churches and courtrooms look the same today, because when you go into churches, you sit out here with the poor folks in the chairs, out here in the pews, but you cannot go up into the lifted higher elevation. You can't go inside the gate. You can't go inside the little doors. Only the priest can go inside there and officiate for you. You stay on the outside with the poor folks. The altar is always raised at least 3 tiers, because in Egypt, that was the way it was always done. The altar was always raised so the people could see the representative of God dressed in black. The priest comes out on the altar dressed in black, and he is officiating for you. He is the mediator between you and God. That is the same thing that happens in the courtroom. You walk in, and you are part of the poor folks, sitting out here in the audience. And here is the fence, or gate, that separates you. The attorneys can go inside the gate, and they are your mouthpiece, to go talk to God for you, and see if they can get you off. And the lawyers will be the mediator between God or the judge who judges you and man. That is where all this comes from in our society today. Sheriff in the ancient Egyptian was a lawgiver, and his badge was always a 6-pointed star, which is another symbol of Saturn. U.S. sheriffs in the Wild West, up to today, still wear the 6-pointed star. It is interesting that Saturn's symbol is the 6-pointed star. Saturn is the 6th planet from the Sun. Saturn Day is the 6th day of the week. And now NASA is receiving images of the Saturn hexagram, 6-sided atmospheric formation at Saturn's poles. The 6th chakra of the human energy system is the 3rd eye, pineal gland. 6 3 times is 666. When your 3rd eye chakra opens, you develop your 6th sense of intuition and spirituality. From a consciousness perspective, the 6th sense, your intuitions and hunches, are messengers of God, your guardian angels. Isn't it interesting that angels have halos and rings around their heads, and Saturn is the only planet with a halo or ring around it? Jordan Maxwell wrote, "That is why today when you get married before God, and the symbol of that God is the ring that is put on each other's fingers, the ring of Saturn. In the marriage phases, one also begins to see what that has to do with Saturn. So when you get married with a ring, and the symbol of that God is the ring of Saturn. You're wearing God's ring. And the yarmulke was the round ring that you wear on your head, for Saturn, your God. Even in the Middle Ages, in the temples, Catholic monks would shave their heads in a round circle, and the Hebrews, instead of doing that, would wear the yarmulke. But it all had to do with the round rings of Saturn." Michael Tessarian wrote, "The ancient name of Saturn was, as mentioned, El. It is the reason why those that were chosen by El were called elites. In fact, the words elect, elder, elevated, Elohim, temple, circle, gospel, apostle, disciple, evangelists, etc., all derived from the cult of El. Angels are messengers of God, but God was El, which is why we have the names of the archangels bearing the El suffix: Raphael, Michael, Uriel, Gabriel, etc." Acharya S. wrote, "The plural term Elohim appears over 2,500 times in the Old Testament, but is falsely translated in most versions. This fact of plurality explains why in Genesis gods said, 'Let us make man in our image.' As stated, Elohim refers to both gods and goddesses, and its singular form El served as a prefix or suffix to the names of gods, people, and places, whence Emmanuel, Gabriel, Bethel, etc. Even Satan was one of the Elohim. The gods of Elohim are angels, the messengers of God. When witches cast a spell, they put the hex, 6, on someone. And when chefs deep fry something, they deep six it. It is the elites who run the world today. Elite comes from the Israelite, which come from the Egyptian worship of the moon, Isis, the sun, Ra, and Saturn, Elohim, hence Israel. Jews and Muslims alike worship a huge black cube and box called Kaaba at Mecca. Their god, Yahweh, YHWH, is known as the Tetragrammaton, meaning their four-letter, four-sided God. The Kabbalah of Jewish mysticism and Masonry comes from Kaaba, Allah, or cube god, around which people gather and ceremonially walk in circles. Thus it can be said that they are circling the square. Masons are also constantly referring to circling the square and squaring the circle. For instance, this is why a boxing match is fought for rounds in the ring, but it is actually a four-sided square arena with corners. The Freemasonic G, geometry, God, symbol within a compass, and T-square symbolizes this as well. Just as people circle around their cube god Kaaba, so the Masons use a compass and square around their G god geometry. In Islamic tradition, the rock is where Muhammad ascended to heaven, accompanied by the angel Gabriel. The Dome of the Rock was built in the 600 AD era and was won back by the Israelites on 06-07-67 after the Six-Day War. The dome's outer walls measure 60, 6 times 10, feet wide and 36, 6 times 6, feet high. The Knights Templar claimed the Dome of the Rock was the site of the Temple of Solomon and set up their Templum Domini adjacent to it during the 12th century. Fritz Springmeier wrote, "Saturn is an important key to understanding the long heritage this conspiracy has back to antiquity. The city of Rome was originally known as Saturnia, or City of Saturn. The Roman Catholic Church retains much of the Saturn worship in its ritual. Saturn also relates to Lucifer. In various occult dictionaries, Saturn is associated with evil. Saturn was important to the religion of Mithra and also the Druids. Black is both Saturn's color and Satan's color. The Black Holy Bible tells us Satan is 666. Saturn is the sixth planet. Its symbol is a six-pointed star. It supposedly has hexagon weather formations, and Saturn Day, the sixth day, is Ozzy Osbourne's Black Sabbath. Something suspicious surrounds Saturn, and it's certainly not just its rings."
England, Canada, Australia, and many other countries are led politically by prime ministers to the Queen. In fact, she is the official head of 123 Commonwealth countries. America, Russia, and other countries, however, have a president and vice president. Usually, corporations have presidents and vice presidents. What does this mean? The US presidents rule from the White House. The Russian presidents also rule from the White House. The Jesuits, a large force behind the Illuminati, have their own White House as well. England is ruled from Whitehall. Jordan Maxwell wrote, "The United States government is being ruled from the White House. The government of England is being ruled from what is called Whitehall. And Whitehall, like our White House, is the symbol of power, because the hall is like the Masonic Hall, the Lodge Hall, the Union Hall." Press Trivedi wrote, "For those who think America controls the roost, it would do well to consider that the Queen of England is still the official head of Commonwealth, 123 countries, and the official monarch of Australia and Canada, along with the United Kingdom. Add to that the fact that all Bush Sr. got for his 2 terms as President of USA is a mere knighthood of the British Empire." The original 13 colonies were actually called companies. Military units are also called companies. We sing patriotic songs like the Star-Spangled Banner.
But a banner is a corporate advertisement, not a flag. You surrender with a white flag, no colors. When you get mad, you show your true colors. If you just won independence in a bloody revolution with Britain, would you choose the same 3 colors for your new US flag? Why does every heart ring true for the red, white, and blue? What about the gold-fringed flag used by the military, hung at all courts, schools, and government buildings? It all has to do with the British Maritime Admiralty Law of Flags. David Icke wrote, "This is also known as British Maritime Military Law, and this is why the American flag always has a gold fringe when displayed in the courts of the United States. You find the same in government buildings and federally funded schools. The gold fringe is a legal symbol indicating that the court is sitting under British maritime law and the Uniform Commercial Code. Military and merchant law, not common or constitutional law, under the Admiralty Law of Flags, the flag displayed gives notice of the law under which the ship, in this case the court, is regulated. Anyone entering that ship, court, accepts by doing so that they are submitting to the law indicated by that flag. Judges refuse to replace the flag with one without a fringe when asked by defendants who know the score, because that changes the law under which the court is sitting. If you appear in a court with a gold-fringed flag, your constitutional rights are suspended, and you are being tried under British maritime military merchant law." International Maritime Admiralty Law, the law of the high seas, began in Sumeria, was perfected in Rome, and continues to this day. Jordan Maxwell has explained that the way we trade commerce today is modeled after the Masons, Templar Knights, 1,000-year-old system. Notice how, regardless of whether you send a product by air, water, or land, you ship it. The ship pulls into its berth and ties to the dock. The captain has to provide the port authorities with a certificate of manifest declaring the products he has bought. Through a legal loophole the royals have created, U.S. citizens are considered property of the Queen under British maritime law. Since we are born of our mother's water, from her birth canal, we are thereby a maritime product, a shipped commodity. Our mothers were delivering a product under maritime law, and that's why we are born in a delivery room. That's why the dock signs your birth certificate, your certificate of manifest. You're kept in the maternity ward. Why a ward? No other hospital areas are called wards. Prisons have wards and wardens. The judge sits on the bench for the bank. Banks are on both sides of a river. A river bank directs the flow of the current sea, the currency, the cash flow. The currency is deposited from bank to bank down the river. We're just consumers to advertise to, just human resources to be used up like batteries, and they are the social engineers molding us useless eaters into wage slavery. The United States Corporation came about just after the Civil War. The Act of 1871 was passed by Congress, creating a separate form of government for D.C., essentially turning it into a corporation. It was decided that employees would be called citizens. So when you say in a court or on paper that you are a citizen of the United States, you are not a free American, but an employee of U.S. Inc. When you get a fine, a ticket, a bill, or get sued, you must sign in all capital letters. When you die, your Masonic tombstone by law will have all capital letters to show their employee has died. The entity that is your name in all caps is your Maritime Admiralty Product Code. Upper and lowercase letters legally represents you, your body. The Uniform Commercial Code was approved by the American Bar Association, which is a franchise, a subordinate branch of the British legal system, and its hierarchy based in London's Temple Bar, named after the Illuminati Knights Templar secret society. The power that controls America is based in Britain and Europe, because that is where the power is located that owns the United States Corporation. By the way, if you think it is strange that a court on dry land could be administered under maritime law, look at U.S. Code Title 18b7. It says that admiralty jurisdiction is applicable in the following locations: 1. The high seas. 2. Any American ship. 3. Any lands reserved or acquired for the use of the United States and under the exclusive or concurrent jurisdiction thereof, or any place purchased or otherwise acquired by the United States by consent of the legislature of the state. In other words, mainland America. All this is founded on Roman law, because the Illuminati have been playing this game throughout the centuries wherever they have gone. The major politicians know that this is how things are, and so do the government administrators, judges, lawyers, and insider journalists. Those who realize what is happening and ask the court for the name of the true creditor or recipients of the fines imposed by the legal system are always refused this information by the judge. The true creditors in such cases, and the ultimate recipient of the fines, are the bankers, to which the corporation, country, is bankrupt. Lawyers, or barristers, have to take the bar association, bar exam, just as alcoholics go to the bar, sugar junkies eat candy bars, and gamblers hope to get 3 bars on the slot machine. These all derive from the Templars' turn of the 13th century Temple Bar in England. Originally, the Temple Bar was literally just a bar, or chain, between 2 posts next to the Temple Law Courts. This soon became a huge stone gate, and there were eventually 8 of these gates built so the elites could restrict and control trade within the city of London. They were taken down during the 19th century, but then each stone was numbered and kept in storage until 2004, when they just rebuilt the Temple Bar in London. David Icke wrote, "The United States Corporation was created behind the screen of a federal government, when, after the manufactured victory in the American War of Independence, the British colonies exchanged overt dictatorship from London with the far more effective covert dictatorship that has been in place ever since. In effect, the Virginia Company, the corporation headed by the British Crown that controlled the former colonies, simply changed its name to the United States and other related pseudonyms. These include the U.S., USA, United States of America, Washington, D.C., District of Columbia, Federal Government, and Feds. The United States Corporation is based in the District of Columbia, and the current president of the corporation is a man called George W. Bush. He is not the president of the people, or the country as they are led to believe. That's just the smokescreen. This means that Bush launched a war on terrorism on behalf of a private corporation to further the goals of that corporation. It had nothing to do with America or Americans, because these are very different legal entities. It is the United States Corporation that owns the United States military and everything else that comes under the term federal. This includes the Federal Reserve, the central bank of the United States, which is, in reality, a private bank owned by controlling stockholders and controllers of the U.S. corporation that are not even American. This is the bank from which the United States Corporation borrows money.